If you're over 60, here's a truth that might shock you. 99% of people your age are slowly damaging their eyes every single day, and they don't even know it. It's not because of your age. It's not your genetics. It's what's on your plate, or more importantly, what's missing from it. For decades, people have believed that carrots are the best food for vision. And while they do help, here's the twist. The real key to protecting your eyes isn't orange, it's vitamin C. The problem? Most people are eating all the wrong foods to get it. The richest sources of vitamin C aren't what you think, and once you know what they are, you'll never look at your grocery list the same way again. These foods don't just boost your immune system, they shield your eyes from the inside, defending them against the three invisible forces that steal your vision as you age: oxidative stress, inflammation, and poor circulation. And here's the part that blows most people away. By simply eating the right kinds of vitamin C-rich foods, you can strengthen your retina, protect your lens, and even slow down macular degeneration and cataracts, naturally, without medication. I've seen it happen time and time again in my patients. Their eyesight doesn't just stop getting worse, it gets clearer. So in today's video, I'll reveal the top 4 vitamin C foods that can protect your eyes from damage and help you see the world the way you used to: bright, sharp, and full of life. And trust me, you'll be shocked by the number 1 food on the list, because it's not an orange, and it's not even a fruit most people think of as eye food. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who's over 60, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you more science-backed health advice made just for you. All right, let's dive in. The silent thief: how aging steals your vision. After the age of 60, your eyes face 3 powerful enemies: oxidative stress, inflammation, and poor circulation. These are not abstract medical terms. They are the silent forces that slowly and quietly steal your ability to see the world clearly. Every day, whether you're reading, walking outdoors, or simply cooking under bright kitchen lights, your eyes are exposed to millions of light particles. That constant exposure, along with air pollution and even your body's natural metabolism, generates unstable molecules called free radicals. These tiny troublemakers damage the delicate tissues inside your eyes, leading over time to cataracts, macular degeneration, and retinal thinning, the 3 most common causes of vision loss among older adults. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that nearly 1 in 3 Americans over 65 lives with some form of vision impairment. But behind those statistics are real people: grandparents who can no longer read to their grandchildren, retirees who stop driving at dusk because the headlights blur, and lifelong readers who suddenly need larger print. Vision loss doesn't just take away sight. It chips away at independence and joy. When I worked full-time in ophthalmology, I used to tell my patients, "Your eyes are like a camera. The lens, the film, and the light sensor are all made of living tissue. If you don't protect them from oxidative stress, the film starts to fade." And that's exactly what happens as we age. The lens becomes cloudy, the retina becomes thin, and the macula, the part that allows you to read and see fine detail, begins to weaken. Inside the retina, millions of light-sensitive cells transform light into electrical signals for the brain. These cells require oxygen to function, but oxygen also produces reactive oxygen species, or free radicals, the biological equivalent of rust. They corrode your eye tissue just as moisture corrodes metal. Over time, the buildup of oxidative damage clouds your vision. According to the National Eye Institute, the eye's natural antioxidant defenses decline by nearly 30% after age 60, leaving it more vulnerable to damage. That's where vitamin C becomes essential. Most people know it as the immune vitamin, but in your eyes, it's your most concentrated antioxidant. The lens and retina store vitamin C specifically to protect themselves from light-induced damage. A 10-year study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults with higher vitamin C intake had a 20% lower risk of developing cataracts. The famous age-related eye disease study, or ARDS, sponsored by the National Eye Institute, also showed that vitamin C combined with other nutrients like vitamin E, beta-carotene, and zinc could reduce the risk of advanced macular degeneration by 25%. But supplements alone can't replace what nature designed. Whole foods deliver vitamin C alongside carotenoids, flavonoids, and minerals that help the vitamin do its job more effectively. Think of it as a team effort, not just one antioxidant, but a symphony of protectors working together. I remember a patient named Alina, a 70-year-old librarian who came to me worried that her world was growing dimmer. Reading became difficult, and bright lights caused halos around objects. She had early cataracts and mild macular damage. Her diet consisted mostly of toast, coffee, and pasta, easy comfort foods with very few antioxidants. We started small, a kiwi or orange at breakfast, red bell peppers and spinach with lunch, and mango smoothies twice a week. 6 months later, her follow-up scan showed slower cataract progression and better contrast sensitivity. She smiled and said, "It feels like someone cleaned my glasses from the inside." Inflammation plays a huge part in this story too. When oxidative stress damages your cells, your body releases inflammatory molecules to repair them. But chronic inflammation, especially in the eyes, often does more harm than good. Studies in the Journal of Ophthalmology have shown that seniors with high inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein are far more likely to develop retinal thinning. Vitamin C helps here as well, not just by neutralizing free radicals, but by calming inflammation and supporting collagen production, which keeps your eyes' tiny blood vessels strong. Speaking of blood vessels, circulation is the third key to healthy vision. The retina is packed with more than 30,000 microscopic capillaries that deliver oxygen and nutrients. With age, these vessels stiffen and narrow, starving the eye of what it needs most. Poor circulation contributes to conditions like glaucoma and diabetic retinopathy. A study in hypertension research found that older adults with poor microvascular function were 60% more likely to develop retinal damage. Vitamin C supports healthy blood flow by strengthening vessel walls and improving nitric oxide production, which relaxes those tiny arteries and improves oxygen delivery. So what does this mean for you? It means that protecting your vision isn't just about glasses or surgeries, it's about lifestyle. Eat colorful foods every day. Each hue carries a unique set of antioxidants. Keep your blood sugar steady because excess sugar speeds up lens clouding. Move your body to promote blood flow, get regular eye exams, and limit screen glare or bright artificial light when possible. Most importantly, start seeing food as medicine. Those bright red peppers in your salad, the handful of strawberries in your yogurt, the slice of mango on your plate, they aren't just tasty. They are repairing the lens, nourishing the retina, and keeping the camera of your life in focus. And maybe, next time you watch a sunset or read a handwritten letter from your grandchild, you'll remember that these small habits, this daily care, are what make that vision possible. Aging doesn't have to steal your sight. With knowledge, consistency, and a little vitamin C, you can protect the gift of seeing clearly for many years to come. Food number 4, kiwifruit, the retina rebuilder. When most people think of vitamin C, they picture oranges. But here's a surprising truth. A single kiwifruit actually contains more vitamin C than an orange, and it offers a powerful combination of nutrients that directly protect your eyes. Kiwi is rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, two antioxidants that shield the retina, the part of your eye that senses light and color, from oxidative stress and damage caused by blue light exposure. These compounds act like natural sunglasses, filtering harmful rays and preserving the cells responsible for clear, sharp vision. Several studies support kiwi's remarkable benefits. Research published in Ophthalmic Research found that older adults who ate kiwifruit 3 times a week had greater retinal thickness and improved contrast sensitivity, allowing them to see shapes and colors more clearly in dim lighting. Another study from the University of Oslo showed that eating 2 kiwifruits a day for 8 weeks reduced oxidative stress markers by nearly 1/3 and significantly increased antioxidant levels in the blood, an essential defense against age-related macular degeneration. I've seen these results firsthand. One of my patients, Margaret, age 74, was an avid reader who began struggling with blurred letters and faded colors on the page. Early macular degeneration was beginning to affect her ability to enjoy her favorite mystery novels. We added 2 kiwifruits to her breakfast routine, along with a bit of yogurt and chia seeds for balance. 3 months later, she told me she could read comfortably again, and her scans showed stronger macular pigment density, proof that her eyes were defending themselves better. Kiwi's magic doesn't stop with vitamin C. It also contains vitamin E, copper, and folate, all of which support blood vessel health and reduce inflammation inside the retina. Improved circulation means more oxygen reaching those delicate eye tissues, which translates to sharper, more stable vision. In fact, a study in the Nutrition Journal found that adults who ate 2 kiwifruits daily for a month experienced better blood vessel flexibility and a modest drop in blood pressure, benefits that also extend to the microvessels in the eyes. Here's something I like to remind my patients. Your eyes can't store vitamin C. You have to replenish it every day. Unlike other nutrients that build up in your body, vitamin C is used quickly, so regular intake is crucial. That's what makes kiwi such an excellent habit. It's small, easy to eat, and naturally low in sugar compared to many other fruits. If you want to get the most out of it, don't peel the skin. The fuzzy exterior might look strange, but it's packed with extra fiber and antioxidants. Try slicing kiwi thin and eating it with Greek yogurt, or blending it into a smoothie with spinach and lemon. Consistency matters far more than quantity. 2 or 3 kiwifruits per week can make a noticeable difference over time. I remember another patient, Thomas, a 70-year-old retired engineer who complained that his eyes often felt tired and foggy after long hours reading blueprints on his tablet. He swapped his mid-morning muffin for a sliced kiwi and a handful of almonds. Within a couple of months, he told me that his eyes felt less strained and his night vision had improved. Sometimes small daily changes create the biggest results. So let me ask you this. If a simple fruit could help you read comfortably, drive confidently, and keep the sparkle in your eyes well into your 70s or 80s, wouldn't you make it part of your routine? Protecting your vision doesn't always require supplements or fancy treatments. Sometimes, it's as easy as adding a little green fruit to your breakfast plate. Each kiwi is more than just a snack. It's a small act of care for the eyes that let you see the people and moments that make life worth living. Food number 3, strawberries. The blood vessel protector. Your eyes depend on thousands of tiny blood vessels to deliver oxygen and nutrients every second. As you age, those vessels naturally weaken and stiffen, reducing blood flow and increasing inflammation. Over time, that damage can lead to serious problems like diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, or age-related macular degeneration. Strawberries, however, offer one of the simplest and most powerful ways to fight back. These bright red berries are packed with vitamin C, manganese, and polyphenols, nutrients that strengthen collagen, the protein responsible for keeping blood vessels flexible and the eye's structural tissue firm. Stronger vessels mean better oxygen delivery, healthier retinas, and sharper vision. Science backs up what many of us see in the clinic. A 2018 study in the Nutrients Journal showed that adults who ate about a cup of strawberries every day for 4 weeks saw a 14% increase in antioxidant capacity, meaning their bodies became more efficient at neutralizing oxidative stress, the very thing that accelerates vision decline. Another study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that people who regularly ate berries high in anthocyanins, the compounds that give strawberries their deep red color, had better retinal circulation and a significantly lower risk of vascular eye diseases. Anthocyanins also help blood vessels relax, improving oxygen flow to the eyes and brain. I think of Harold, one of my patients, a 69-year-old retired truck driver with early signs of diabetic eye damage. His vision had dulled and his eye pressure was creeping up. Instead of reaching straight for more medication, we adjusted his diet. I asked him to replace his daily candy bar with a bowl of strawberries and a few walnuts. 2 months later, his blood sugar had stabilized, his eye pressure had dropped slightly, and he smiled as he told me, "Doc, I see sharper colors again. The sunsets look like they used to." That's the beauty of how real food works. It heals gradually, but it works. The benefits of strawberries go far beyond vitamin C. They are loaded with antioxidants that help prevent capillary leakage in the retina, one of the earliest signs of vascular stress. A study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that eating strawberries regularly reduced inflammation markers in the blood and improved nitric oxide production, which allows blood vessels to stay open and supple. In simple terms, strawberries help keep your circulation young. I remember another patient, Helen, a 72-year-old retired teacher who struggled with dry eyes and mild glaucoma. She tried different drops, but nothing brought lasting relief. Together, we worked on her nutrition, adding daily strawberries and omega-3-rich foods. Within a few months, she told me her eyes felt less dry and her pressure readings improved. She said, "I didn't realize my eyes were hungry." I loved that phrase because it's true. Our eyes are hungry for nutrients that keep them alive and resilient. If you decide to make strawberries part of your diet, choose organic when you can. Conventional strawberries often carry pesticide residues that can burden your liver and nerves, two systems that indirectly affect your eyes. If organic isn't an option, rinse them thoroughly in a mix of water and baking soda to reduce residue. For best absorption, pair strawberries with healthy fats like Greek yogurt, almonds, or chia seeds. The antioxidants in strawberries are fat-soluble and absorb better this way. It's also worth noting that frozen strawberries are just as beneficial as fresh ones, especially when frozen soon after harvest. So you can enjoy their benefits year-round. Consistency matters more than quantity. A handful a day or a few servings each week can make a real difference. Here's something I often ask my patients. If one small bowl of fruit could strengthen your blood vessels, stabilize your vision, and even brighten how you see the world, wouldn't you reach for it? Protecting your eyesight doesn't always require complex treatments. It often starts in your kitchen. Strawberries may look simple, but they are one of the most powerful natural tools we have to protect our eyes from the slow, silent effects of aging. Food number 2, mango, the tropical eye shield. Mangoes don't get nearly enough credit for their role in protecting vision. Most people see them as just a sweet tropical fruit, but they're actually packed with nutrients that directly support eye health. Mangoes are rich in vitamin C, vitamin A, and beta-carotene, a powerful combination that helps protect the cornea, the clear front surface of the eye, and prevents night blindness. Vitamin C shields the lens from oxidative stress, while vitamin and beta-carotene maintain healthy corneal tissue and strengthen the retina. Together, they act as a natural defense system against the gradual damage that comes with aging. Scientific research has repeatedly shown how effective mangoes can be. In a large 10-year clinical study published in the British Journal of Nutrition, older adults who regularly ate carotenoid-rich fruits like mango and papaya had a 35% lower risk of developing cataracts compared to those who didn't. Another study in the Journal of Food Science and Technology found that compounds found in mango, particularly beta-cryptoxanthin and zeaxanthin, accumulate in the retina, forming a protective layer that filters harmful blue light and improves visual clarity. That's one reason people who eat these fruits consistently tend to have sharper vision and less glare sensitivity, especially at night. I've seen this happen in real life. Denise, one of my 71-year-old patients, struggled with dry, irritated eyes and trouble driving after sunset. Her diet lacked colorful fruits and vegetables, so I encouraged her to start blending half a mango with spinach, lemon, and a little Greek yogurt twice a week. It wasn't long before she came back saying, "Doctor, William, I can finally drive at night without feeling blinded by headlights." Her eyes were healthier because she was giving them the nutrients they had been missing for years. That result makes sense when you understand how mangoes work. Their vibrant orange color comes from carotenoids, antioxidants that protect the delicate tissues of the eye from free radicals and UV damage. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that people with higher dietary carotenoid intake had up to 40% fewer cases of macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of blindness in older adults. Carotenoids also help regenerate rhodopsin, the pigment that allows your eyes to adjust to dim light, which is why people who eat mangoes regularly often notice better night vision. Mangoes also contain copper and folate, two nutrients that support the body's antioxidant defenses and improve circulation to the retina. Strong blood flow keeps the eye nourished and oxygenated, which is critical for preventing early degeneration. In countries where mangoes are a dietary staple, rates of vision-related diseases are noticeably lower, a testament to how nutrition can shape long-term eye health. In my own kitchen, I often tell patients to eat with color. Mangoes fit that advice perfectly. They're easy to add to your diet, slice them into a salad, blend them into a smoothie, or enjoy them as a mid-morning snack. Personally, I like to blend half a mango with spinach and lemon juice. It tastes great and provides a concentrated dose of antioxidants in one glass. My neighbor Carol, age 67, took a similar approach. She used to dread driving at night because of the glare from headlights. After adding mango smoothies twice a week, she laughed and told me, "It's like someone cleaned my windshield from the inside." If you're adding mangoes to your diet, choose ripe ones with a deep orange color. The richer the hue, the higher the carotenoid content. Pair them with healthy fats like yogurt, nuts, or avocado to boost absorption of vitamin and carotenoids. And while mangoes are naturally sweet, moderation is key. Half a fruit a few times a week is plenty to give your eyes what they need without overdoing the sugar. Here's something worth thinking about. When was the last time you did something just for your eyes? We protect our heart, our bones, and our skin, but often forget the organs that let us see the world. Something as simple as adding mango to your routine can strengthen your cornea, reduce the risk of cataracts, and even help you see more clearly at night. It's a small change that can make a real difference. The next time you slice open a mango, take a look at that golden color and remember, you're not just eating fruit, you're fueling your vision for the years ahead. Food number 1, red bell peppers, the vitamin C king. It might come as a surprise, but the richest source of vitamin C in the modern diet isn't a fruit. It's the red bell pepper. Just 1 cup of chopped red pepper contains almost 3 times more vitamin C than an orange. What makes this vibrant vegetable even more remarkable is that it's also loaded with lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants that form the pigment in the macula, the central part of your retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. These pigments act like natural sunglasses, filtering harmful blue light and protecting your eyes from oxidative stress that contributes to vision loss over time. The science here is compelling. The well-known age-related eye disease study ARDS, conducted by the National Eye Institute, showed that people with higher intakes of vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, and zinc had a 25% lower risk of developing advanced macular degeneration over 5 years. Red bell peppers contain nearly all of those nutrients in one package. Vitamin C strengthens collagen in the eye's blood vessels, beta-carotene supports the retina, and small amounts of vitamin E and zinc help stabilize cell membranes and reduce inflammation. Together, they make red bell peppers one of the most complete eye-protective foods you can eat. Beyond their antioxidant content, red bell peppers contain capsanthin, a carotenoid that has potent anti-inflammatory effects. Chronic inflammation inside the eyes can damage the small blood vessels and photoreceptor cells that keep your vision clear. Capsanthin helps calm that process, while vitamin C protects those same vessels from oxidative wear and tear. Because red peppers are low in sugar and calories, they're also ideal for people managing diabetes or high blood pressure, two of the most common conditions linked to vision decline in older adults. I've seen these benefits firsthand in my patients. Mrs. Sanchez, a 78-year-old woman I've worked with for years, began adding diced red peppers to her omelets after one of our discussions about nutrition and eye health. A few months later, she noticed fewer floaters in her vision and less dryness, especially in the morning. Her eye scans showed subtle but definite improvements in retinal health. Around the same time, another patient, Robert, 66, who spent long hours at a computer, started packing red pepper slices with hummus for lunch. Within weeks, he reported less eye strain and better focus. These kinds of changes may seem small, but they add up over time. Research continues to support what these patients experienced. A 2020 study in the Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism found that people who consumed more lutein and zeaxanthin-rich vegetables like red peppers had up to 40% higher macular pigment density, a measure directly linked to stronger and more resilient vision. Another study published in Clinical Nutrition reported that individuals with diets rich in vitamin C and beta-carotene had slower rates of cataract development over a 10-year period. The connection between nutrient-dense vegetables and long-term eye health is becoming impossible to ignore. Vitamin C also plays another vital role. It helps the body produce collagen, the protein that forms the foundation of your cornea and blood vessels. As we age, collagen production declines, making the eyes more prone to dryness and capillary weakness. By replenishing vitamin C through foods like red bell peppers, you help keep those tissues flexible and strong. If you plan to add red peppers to your meals, remember that preparation matters. Vitamin C breaks down quickly at high temperatures, so avoid frying or overcooking them. Instead, enjoy them raw in salads, slice them into wraps, or roast them lightly at low heat to preserve their nutrients. Pairing red peppers with healthy fats, like avocado, olive oil, or nuts, can also enhance the absorption of their carotenoids. One thing I often ask my patients is simple. When was the last time you ate something naturally red that didn't come out of a box? That color in red bell peppers isn't just for show. It's a sign of powerful antioxidant compounds working to protect your body from within. Even better, red peppers are versatile, easy to find, and freeze well without losing much of their nutritional value, so you can keep them on hand year-round. Adding red bell peppers to your diet may seem like a small step, but it's one that pays off in the long run. Every slice you eat is another layer of protection for your vision, another way to guard against the gradual damage that can steal your sight. And when you think about it, what could be more worthwhile than preserving the ability to see the people and places you love most clearly and comfortably for years to come? So there you have it, 4 simple, delicious foods that can make a world of difference for your eyes after 60. Kiwifruit to rebuild your retina, strawberries to protect your blood vessels, mangoes to strengthen your cornea, and red bell peppers, the true king of vitamin C, to defend your vision from the inside out. Now I want you to think about something. Your eyes have been with you through every sunrise, every smile, every face you've loved. Don't they deserve a little care in return? You don't need fancy supplements or expensive treatments. Sometimes, the best medicine really is what's sitting right on your kitchen counter. If you start adding these foods to your routine, just a few servings each week, you're not only nourishing your body, you're giving your eyes a fighting chance to stay clear, bright, and healthy for years to come. And if this video helped you see things a little differently, literally or figuratively, then do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us keep making videos that bring real, science-backed health advice straight to your screen. Thank you so much for watching, for taking the time to invest in your health, and for letting me be part of that journey. Remember, taking care of your eyes isn't just about seeing, it's about living fully with clarity and confidence at every age. Stay healthy, stay curious, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.